All right, welcome into Los Angeles, California, and Writer's Block. I'm Bill Reiter. Thank you for being here. We got a hell of a show planned for you. Bubba Watson, the two-time Masters champion, going to be on the program. We got the PGA Championship on CBS in just a couple weeks. The event moved up to May. Looking forward to that conversation. Bill's big bet of the day finally comes through. I'm on a hot streak. We're going to keep riding that. And I think some interesting insight into the NBA playoffs from a weird playoff game last night. All of that beginning right now. All right, we're going to start with some NBA playoffs. Last night's Denver game against Portland, hosting the Trailblazers, in which Portland knotted up the series at 1-1, was a weird game in what's going to be and has been a weird series, but I think it has some lessons, not just for their attempts to make the conference finals, but the other series that are out there in the NBA postseason right now. And as for the weirdness and some of the meaning, none other than Denver big man and blossoming superstar Nikola Jokic hit on that after his team's loss.
It was a weird game for us. They play extremely good. They didn't even play that good, to be honest. I mean, they can play really, better than that. So it was kind of a weird game where they were aggressive than we are.
He's right. He's right on a couple fronts. Let's start with the fact that Portland wasn't particularly impressive last night. Denver actually out-rebounded the Trailblazers significantly, 58-47, and they dominated them on the offensive boards, 23-7. Let that number sink. 23-7 at home, still found a way to lose despite dominating on the offensive glass, and it was by a small margin, but still, the Nuggets had fewer turnovers than the Blazers. And to sort of amp up the fact that Portland probably shouldn't have won this game, Dame struggled. And I'm a huge Lillard fan, but he did not play well. 14 points, a brutal 5 of 17 from the field, and his three-point struggles continued. 1 of 7, last night. 5 of 19 from 3 in this series was really good. 48% from 3 in the previous series against the Thunder. And that's bad news for Denver, because this is a Denver team that eventually is going to get Portland's best shot. And it's probably going to come when the series returns to Portland, Oregon. Few facts for you on Denver and their struggles on the road this year. They are 38-9 at home this season, if you include the postseason. 21-23 on the road. Their points per game, almost 113 in the friendly confines of Denver, Colorado, all the way down to just over 107 when they're somewhere else. Their opponents' points per game go from 103 to 110. Their field goal percentage, as you would imagine, dips. It is significant, and I think you have to chalk it up to this fact, to this reality. Playoff experience absolutely matters. Postseason moments, first round, second round, how they feel different, the ability to overcome your failures, to know what those feel like, they shape how champions are made and which teams advance. Here's just some stats for you that I think are really interesting. The games played, just games played in the postseason for the three guys who are key to each of their teams in this series. Jokic just played 9 playoff games in the NBA in his career, all this season. Opening series in the 2 games we've seen against Portland. Same for Jamal Murray. Lillard, 42 games played. Pretty impressive. CJ McCollum, who was great last night, 37 games played. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. Only 5 wins for Jokic and Murray in their postseason careers. Again, all this postseason, I should say. Lillard 16, McCollum 12. The reality is that playing postseason basketball, having that experience, what is normally the slow build, the slow grind, the experience behind becoming the team that can win series like this one, it's critical, and it's something Damian Lillard was really speaking to, the things he referenced, why his team got the win when he came to the podium after the victory.
Everything, we just took it up a level, and I thought we wore them down in that first half, even though we weren't shooting the ball particularly well. And then in the second half, it was just a grinded out kind of game, and in those games you got to just be the tougher team. You got to want it more, and then you got to have a few players go your way.
This is why I like Portland in this game. It's hell yes on the cover, right? You guys with me? +4 is pretty easy when you get the win. And why I still like Portland in the series despite what happened in Game 1. The experience matters. And I know that the Nuggets were able to fight a hard-fought battle and obviously get the win. Went 7 against San Antonio. but the challenge becomes more pronounced every step of the way as you creep closer to that trophy and to June basketball. And so does just the feeling and the stress and the fact that it's different. Even if you played the game your entire life, it's a different kind of challenge. And there's lessons, I think, beyond this series. Damian Lillard's going to go off. He's going to play well in this series. That's why I think Portland's going to win, and it depends on the lines, right? But I think you should at least keep an eye on Portland and putting your money with Portland, especially when the series goes back to Denver, because I think once Lillard gets comfortable and once that Nuggets team feels more of the stress as they get closer to an elimination game, I don't think they're going to play the way that we saw them play in the regular season. But here's another fact as we sort of go from 10,000 feet and look at the entire NBA playoffs. This idea of postseason experience having a huge impact on who advances is going to play itself out, certainly in a big way, in the Eastern Conference. I want to give you some facts before I dive into each of those series. Of the last 15 NBA champions, only 5 got that trophy, got those rings, who didn't make it to the conference finals in the year before they cut down the nets. And those teams, all but one of those teams, had 3 Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. 2005 Spurs lost to the Lakers second round the year before. 2007 Spurs, we know they had Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, Hall of Famers or will be Hall of Famers. 2008 Celtics, who came together, probably 3 Hall of Famers. If you put Rondo on there, there's 4. 2011 Mavericks, the only exception to that rule. They've got 2 Hall of Famers. I know Jason Kidd wasn't the superstar at that point of his career, but still that experience. And Dirk, obviously, first ballot Hall of Famer. And the 2015 Warriors had at least Steph, Clay, and Draymond folks getting into the Hall of Fame. You don't see that exception on this Denver team. I don't think you see that exception on this Milwaukee team. I know it feels early, but we're going to look back someday at the Bucks and say Giannis probably stays healthy, Hall of Famer. Chris Middleton, kind of doubt it. Eric Bledsoe, doesn't feel like it. And the Sixers are interesting in the same respect. Not a ton of playoff experience for those teams relative to what the Celtics have been through, but you could make the argument that the Sixers have 3 future Hall of Famers, depending on Embiid's health and whether Ben Simmons, learns to shoot a jump shot. And that experience in the playoffs and how it could impact in a big way that Sixers-Toronto series and that Milwaukee Celtics series is something Brett Brown is aware of and something that he addressed.
To revisit sort of 12 years of playoff life I had with Pop, and to now be able to call upon those experiences and share them with my team, to game plan, to sort of coordinate a coaching staff's focal point, to delegate, try to lead and bring it together.
When I'm gambling, which is all the time, I'm trying to find an edge. And when we're sort of looking at these various sports and who's going to be champions, who's going to win various games and series, I'm looking for an edge. I think the postseason experience edge is really significant, especially in this Philly-Toronto series. Again, these are just postseason games played, including this year. Embiid, just 14. Simmons, 17. And Jimmy Butler's played a lot. He's got 50 of them. But Kawhi Leonard has more than all 3 of those guys combined. Kawhi has played in 94 playoff games. He's won an NBA championship. He's the second youngest MVP in an NBA Finals in the history of the game after Magic Johnson. And that's before you remember that Lowry is a guy that played in 69 playoff games, that run a few years ago when DeRozan was on the team to the Eastern Conference Finals. And Siakam, not a ton of experience, 19. But that's more than Embiid. That's more than Simmons. I like Toronto's ability to bounce back. I'm not going to overreact to that Sixers win. And again, you got to see the lines. We'll get into that here in a second. But Toronto has the experience and the best player on the floor. Still love the Raptors as a result. We'll see what happens, how it plays out tonight. Celtics-Bucks is tomorrow. And this one's a little more interesting because I like Milwaukee. Horford's played 117 playoff games in his career. Kyrie just 58, but we know those were with LeBron. He won an NBA championship. He hit a big shot in Game 7, outdueled Steph Curry, and Tatum just 25. But Giannis, 25 games in the playoffs, not a lot. Middleton, 25 games in the playoffs, not a lot. Bledsoe, 30 games in the playoffs, not a lot. I get nervous betting on that Celtics team because I worry that the chemistry that they have issues with, and they do, is going to come apart at the seams a little bit. But the experience makes me sort of at least want to hedge a little bit. It'll depend for me on each of those lines. But last night's Denver-Portland game, weird though it is, Jokic was right, weird game, is a reminder that having been through the battles is a really important variable in whether you survive the one in front of you. Don't sleep on Toronto. Don't sleep, I'm talking to myself here, on the Celtics, and certainly don't sleep on Portland. I think there's a lot of value, particularly with the Trailblazers and just the gulf between their postseason experience and heartache, really. They've run with the Warriors 2 of the last, 4 years in the postseason, and Denver being so very, very green. We're going to circle back to this here in a little bit. In about 15 minutes, we'll go inside the numbers. I'll give you my Bills Big Bet of the day. Feeling good. Won last night. Thank you, Portland, for the cover. But we're going to talk a little golf with one of the most interesting guys in golf, Bubba Watson. My conversation with him in just a minute here on Reiter's Block. All right, welcome back into the show. The PGA Championship on CBS is in a couple weeks. It's now in May. Got to talk to Bubba Watson earlier about that and more. Here's our conversation. Bubba Watson, thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so some changes to the schedule. FedEx Cup goes from 4 weeks to 3, and the PGA Championship coming up in a few weeks here in May. How do you feel about the changes? How does it affect the flow of the year for you?
Well, I think as a golfer and in your travel plans, it changes it a little bit, but not in a bad way. And I think for the fans in general, I mean, it's amazing having such big tournaments month after month. As we can see, the excitement around Tiger winning the Masters, and now coming up here in a week and a half back to New York, where the fans are always out and supporting us. So I think for the fans, it's an amazing schedule change. But I think as a player, you're going to have to learn it. You're going to have to just kind of learn, because we all get set in our ways, and now we just change it a little bit here and there.
Yeah, just selfishly as one of those fans, excited the PGA Championship on CBS. It's so close on the heels of the Masters. And you said it, you guys are creatures of routine. How are you personally feeling physically and mentally as you get ready for that tournament?
I'm looking forward to it. And I did my schedule this way so I could have some break. I wanted to play in the team event down in New Orleans and then have a break. And then because I knew how demanding the golf course is. Bethpage is one of the toughest golf courses we're going to play, depending on how they put the rough. The length is always there. So you're going to be you need some energy. You're going to need the mental focus, and you're going to need some energy to attack that golf course.
Yeah, you played Bethpage Black well in the past. How do you think your game in general, and you said it depends how they lay the course out, but how do you think your game tends to line up on that very difficult golf course?
Well, the first advantage I have is being one of the longer hitters. And so when you have a driver where you can hit pretty far, it takes the length out of there. Now hitting the fairways is a totally different topic, but as of right now, as we sit on paper, it would be the length is a big advantage for a lot of guys, and so I'm one of those guys. And so going into it, the length shouldn't be that big a deal, but it's still there because you're gonna have some long irons and the par threes and stuff. But the driver in hand, I have a little bit more advantage on half the field, I guess.
Bubba, one of the stories about you that I find astounding, and I'm an amateur golfer who has had lessons, and I'm not very good at it, even though I love the sport. Is it true you've never had a formal golf lesson in your life?
Yes, I've never had a lesson. I've learned it all myself. Plastic balls around my house, going around one way to practice a cut, going around the other way to practice a draw. I just kind of picked up the game and fell in love with it, and I just kept getting better and better. So my dad never saw that I needed a lesson. And even to this day, even turning pro, never had a lesson. I learned by watching. And so you watch people on TV, or you see people do some things, and then you go try it at your house and try to get better.
So what is, for folks who haven't followed, what is Bubba Golf, your own very unique style of the game of golf?
Yeah, Bubba Golf, I would have to say, is just having fun and enjoying the game. And for me, I like hitting driver a lot, no matter if it's a full driver or what I call a dink driver. Just having fun with it and enjoying it. You know, I was so blessed to play on the PGA Tour and play golf for a living. So for me, it's just having fun, trying to pick a target and hit at it. Don't worry about your swing. Don't worry about swing thoughts. Just try to enjoy the game, and shoot as low as possible. It doesn't matter if you hit fairways or hitting the trees. Lowest score is what we're trying to get.
Self-taught, obviously, there's no replacement for talent. At what point in your life did you really understand, I'm good enough at this potentially that I might be able to make a living doing this if I keep working hard and things go well?
Yeah, I was watching golf back in the day at 12 years old, and Payne Stewart was my guy watching on TV. He stood out to me because of the way he dressed with knickers and everything. And so watching him, and then one day when I was 12 years old, I shot a real low score, 62 in a tournament. And so I had 10 birdies, 8 pars. And so at that moment, I my parents and everything realized that, wait, there might be a future in this. It might get a scholarship going to college, and then maybe one day it could be pro golf. So at that young age, we kind of realized there was something going on, the ability that I was developing the right way. And so again, that's why I didn't have lessons, because my dad said, well, you're developing the right way, so why change it up?
You mentioned Tiger and his win at Augusta. You are familiar with what it must feel like, one of the few men on earth to walk down 18 on Sunday and eventually be able to slip that green jacket on. For folks, obviously, we're watching from a distance. Can you give us a sense of what that moment's like, from putting on 18 and having won that tournament to getting in the cabin and having that jacket slipped on your shoulders? For you, twice.
Yeah, for me, twice. In 12, I won in a playoff, so I didn't get the easy walk up the fairway. It's one of those where it was still under pressure. We went to an extra hole on 18, and we tied that hole. So then we went to number 10, and I hit it in the trees, and somehow I made about a 6-inch putt to win. And, just becoming an adoptive dad 2 weeks before that, it was just overwhelming, and I cried like a little baby then. But I had a 3-shot lead in 14, coming up 18. So it was a little easier. Just the thing, though, when I was walking up 18, I wasn't really celebrating. I wasn't really crying yet. I was so focused on trying to finish the round, and I wanted to make sure I didn't mess up. I'd rather be known for taking my time for winning by 3 shots than losing. So it was still a joyful moment, and I could still walk it up, but I was trying to keep my head down and stay focused on finishing the round.
You and your colleagues are in the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of golf talent on earth, but nerves are nerves. How hard is it? Obviously for you guys, I was about to do a terrible left-handed golf swing. I'm a lefty. How hard is it for you to just stay in that muscle memory when it's particularly in a playoff or a spot like that, what's on the line?
Well, that's what the beauty of the game is. That's the beauty of sports, right? So when you look at all sports, not just golf, it's coming down. You're going to have those moments, rare moments in your life as a sportsman. And so I've played in 300 tournaments. I've won 12 times. So that means in those moments, I only pulled it off 12 times. And so when you think about what Tiger's done and what he's been able to do mentally, let alone physically, 81 times he's pulled it off. And so we're all trying to get there. We're all trying to find that magic. And it's not just in the golf swing, but it's also in the mental part. And the mental part is what messes up your golf swing real fast. And so if you don't focus on the right things, you can look really bad real fast. And so, that's the beauty of sports, right? We're always trying to compete at a high level and somehow dive into what we call the zone, where everything's just flowing perfectly, and somehow you have a shot at winning the trophy.
Bubba, speaking of magic, you've done it on the golf course. You also do it routinely on Twitter. So I want to play for you one of the greatest exchanges in the history of Twitter between you and Phil Mickelson.
Hey guys, Bubba Watson here. Tiger Woods inspired us all, so I'm in the gym at my house this morning, and Phil Mickelson, calf workouts. Hey, look at me at the calf workout. That's not how you hit high bombs. It's the arms, man. 3-pound weights I'm up to now. PGA Championship, high bombs. You're welcome.
There's a lot of debate on how to hit bombs. Is it the arms? Is it the calves? Well, technically, you don't need either. Bubba Watson hits bombs, but it's best if you at least have one. And if you're blessed to have both, well, bombs are a given.
So you've been working on those calves? Are you good? Are you good? How things stand?
No, I am good. I am good. If Tiger Woods doesn't have big calves either, so I'd rather copy Tiger. He's got double the win, so I'm going with whatever Tiger's doing. Yeah, don't worry. There's definitely going to be another video coming out soon. So.
All right, good. Bubba strikes back. 2 more quick ones for you, and we'll let you run. A couple of fun ones before we sign off. So what feels better, beating Phil Mickelson in a golf tournament or being in the New York Times crossword puzzle? Because my wife does the New York Times crossword. You were the answer to a question. I think it's the first time I've ever been helpful with my wife on a crossword in my life.
Oh, definitely a crossword. That's when you know you made it. One of those things where it's a different category that I've never been involved in. So it's pretty neat. What an honor to be associated with that.
All right, last one for you. You're friends with Justin Bieber and, a bit of a renaissance man, Bubba Watson, the Golf Boys. It's been a while. You guys, it's been a while since the Golf Boys cut a YouTube song, but any singing in your post-golf career? Maybe you and Bieber could do a record together.
Oh man, I've tried so hard. He's not buying into it yet. It's one of those things where I've talked to many singers, many musicians trying to get in there. They're not buying in yet. They haven't seen my true talent yet, so I got to find it so I can prove it to them.
I love it. Hey, thank you for the time. Enjoy the talk. Good luck at the PGA Championship on CBS in a couple weeks, and this year. Really, really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
Consider me a Bubba Watson fan, and consider me a fan of the translation machine. We haven't broken out in a while. We're going to use it to hold some guys to account, make sure they were candid when we come back to Writer's Block here in just a minute. All right, welcome back into the show from Los Angeles, California. In a minute, I'm going to give you my bet on tonight's game. You got Raptors Sixers, but first, to give us all a little insight, help us be rooted in some analytics, we're going to go inside the numbers on that series, on that game tonight. We start with the number 42. The Raptors have held their opponent's field goal percentage to 42% or less in all 7 playoff games this season. It's the second longest streak in the three-point era. I love that number. God, I love the Raptors tonight. How about 18? Against the Raptors, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are scoring 18 fewer points combined than they did in round 1. Embiid averaging 11 fewer points per game this series, while Simmons is averaging 7 fewer points. Again, that defense, it's a real thing. So is the pressure and the lack of playoff experience we talked about. How about 35? Philly's bench, this is a shocker, is outscoring the Raptors bench by 35 points so far. In 2 games, the Sixers backups have chipped in 50 points, while Toronto's have managed just 15, but Toronto's got a great bench. That's got to turn. Again, as you look at the lines, remember, the Raptors haven't tapped into that resource yet. Next up is 62. Kawhi Leonard is shooting nearly 62% from the field in this series. God, he's good. Outside of Leonard, Toronto, the rest of these guys shooting under 37%, so some quick math, Kawhi's about 25% more efficient than the rest of his team. He is carrying these guys. Next up on Inside the Numbers, 30 and 57 this postseason. Kawhi is averaging 31 points per game on 57.7% shooting. If those numbers hold, he would be just one of 5 players to score more than 30 points on better than 57% shooting in a single postseason. And finally, and fellow gamblers paid, this one's important, 6-2. The Raptors are 6-2 against the spread in their past 8 road games. On the flip side, the home team is 6-2 against the spread in these teams' past 8 meetings. But I ignore the second part. It's not just the NFL where defense travels. It also applies to the NBA. We'll get to the bet in a minute, but as you can tell, I kind of like Toronto. But first, we wanted to break this out for you. We have some resources here at CBS Sports HQ. We are, after all, a streaming sports network. We're pretty good at technology. And we had the engineers build a translation machine. It's pretty cool. Be careful with it. You don't want to get in trouble with your boss or your girlfriend or your wife. But basically, you can take what somebody said, you put it in, translation machine told you exactly what they're saying. So we're going to do translation machine right now this week in the NBA. Some guys have said things over the course of the postseason, some a few days ago, some last night. We'll start with Jimmy Butler. Always a tough guy to read. And here was his quote after his coach, Brett Brown, called him James Butler. That was a grown-up. That was a grown-up, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's response was, quote, "My name isn't James. It literally is Jimmy," end quote. Okay, but translation machine, what was Jimmy Butler really saying?
Go yourself, Brett Brown.
Dude, my kids watch this show. Come on, Jimmy. Come on, man. Family friendly. CBS Sports HQ. Don't do that. How about Kevin Durant? Quote, "I think the refs did an amazing job tonight. Players did a great job. And the coach is not letting that affect them," end quote. That's really nice by KD. We've grown a little accustomed to the fake burner accounts and some of the frustrations and arguing with Draymond. That's cool. Translation machine, can you give us some insight into what KD was really thinking there?
It's all me. I'm the man, and I don't need any of these fools.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that sounds right. I hate to admit it, but that translation machine, thank you for the candor. Sometimes, be careful what you ask for. Mike Malone, head coach of the Nuggets, said last night, quote, "When you're not having a night where you're making shots consistently, You got to attack the basket, end quote. Not a great night. It's true for the Nuggets. Translation machine, please unveil what their coach was actually saying to us.
When you build a house of bricks, it's hard to win a damn game. At least no one has a translation machine to know that's what I'm saying.
I mean, Coach Malone, you gotta watch CBS Sports HQ. We have a translation machine. Last one, Enos Kanter. Quote, this team, this organization, the city, the whole state, even the senator, it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in my basketball career, end quote. He was formerly a Knick. What's he really saying here, translation machine?
Thank the Lord for the Dolans and for the fact that I'm out of that hole. Good luck in the lottery, Knicks, you losers.
I can't argue with the thing that you said. All right, we got to go, but very quickly, it's Bills' big bet of the day. Thank you, Portland. Raptors 1.5-point favorites at Philly on the road. I love it. We told you, Raptors 6-2 against the spread on the road. Their last 8 games. Love Toronto. Love that defense. Do not get carried away with the fact that Philly won a game in Toronto. The Raptors win going away. The 1.5 is a lock. I'm putting the most money I'm comfortable with. And that is a wrap for us. I'm off tomorrow. Eric Casillas, super talented dude, filling in for me. I will have an interview with Mitchell Trubisky. Hope you'll check that out. And I'll see you on Monday here on Writer's Block. Thanks for hanging out.